Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Ask the Theologian on this Tuesday. Very glad you're here as we take your biblical, theological, and worldview questions, and I hope have a wonderful time today questioning the assumptions and being on our toes and ready to goes. We'll be persnickety, especially with the pronouns. We'll question the assumptions with the logic. We'll have fun. We'll be entertaining. We might ring the snarky bell every now and then. Good to see you. As Ken says, the doctor is in. What was it Lucy charged? 5 cents or something like that? Looking forward to seeing you all at Branson. If you can join us, randywhiteministries.org/Branson. What is today? Today is the 13th. I think they give up our block of rooms, what we haven't already used, on the 15th. So now is the time. And hey, look what's going to be at Branson. This is just 2 of the many good things. Tracing Cain, the book, all ready to go. Even if you got the notes on this while we were doing the series, a lot more in the book for $9.95. Of course, you get a discount at Branson. This one, hot off the press this morning, Paul's Epistle to the Romans, Volume 1. It's chapters 1 through 8. And we will also have Volume 2. Could have put them together, but our in-house printing, which we like to do, it's a little harder the thicker the book gets. So we got Volume 1 and Volume 2 coming there. That's the notes for Romans. All together, color-coded, even a few pictures there. How's that? So that will be there, ready to go, along with the Davidic Chronicles. Let's see, Romans 1 and 2, Mark, Volume 1, Shadows of the Coming King will be there. What else? Habakkuk, what do we call that? A Watchman's Cry? Habakkuk. So a number of good things we got. Look forward to seeing you there if you can possibly make it. And let's see, let's go with Deb at the Buffalo National River in Arkansas. Has a question related to 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 6. For our first question of the day. By the way, if you have a question, about to sneeze here. If you have a question, write the word question in front. That will help us. And hey, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I was meaning to switch to the scripture. Sorry about that. How come, like, I've noticed, like, newscasters never sneeze in the middle of their broadcast, but I do every now and then. Okay, thanks for the bless you. I heard you. And for the first question of the day, Deb, 2 Thessalonians 1:6. How should I respond to someone who believes covenant theology and doesn't know about right division about this verse? 2 Thessalonians 1:6. Seeing it a righteous thing with God to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. Here's what I think I would do. I would say, surely you don't think, do you, that God is going to bring tribulation, not the tribulation, but just nobody knows the troubles I've seen, to anybody that troubles me? How would that even work, let's say on a worldwide scale, or even among the Christians? How would that work? Everybody who troubles me is going to get tribulation. First of all, I would say Christians would have to be they would be in charge of everything by now. If God is recompensing tribulation to those who trouble, then every time you had a problem with your unchristian boss, he'd be fired. There you would be, ready to stand in. You would become the manager, and then the vice president, and then the president, and then the CEO. It would always happen because any time the next up troubled you, tribulation comes upon them. And this would happen. Now, I don't know what happens if a Christian provides trouble to another Christian, but I guess whichever one's right, immediately it would be known because the one that provided the trouble would get the chicken pox or something like this. And so you would know. I think we would have to say, hey, don't you think we should take a little context here and maybe be persnickety with the you don't even have to bring up right division on this. Just say, look, is this you? Is that Randy? Am I in there? I can tell you that people have troubled me in the past, and they didn't get recompense, but they didn't get tribulation by God. So if they want to take every promise in the book is mine, every chapter, every verse, every line, that's the summary of covenant theology. If they want to take every one of them, basically that's just name it and claim it, and it's verifiably untrue. Even for Paul, were there people who troubled Paul that didn't get tribulation? Yeah, I think so. So back up, check the context. This is either a context that is specifically for the Thessalonians in the time and place that they were living and in the circumstances of the ones troubling them, or back up even farther, maybe there is an end times kind of issue on the protection that God gives to his elect, which would be Israel, but we don't have to tell them that, but it would shock their system. The protection that God is going to give to the elect, and you could bring in maybe a Psalm 91 in there or something that 1,000 fall at your right, 10,000 left, no plague shall befall you. In that kind of case, end time scenario, okay, it works there. So it's either very specific to the Thessalonians in their day, or it's specific to God's elect in the tribulation. I think it's just obviously not true even in their life. But let's go on. They say they didn't understand and struggle how God could recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. Hopefully my response will open a door to right division. It is a good opportunity to open a door to right division. You're exactly right, because you can come along and say, look, I mean, has anyone troubled you and not received tribulation? Do governments ever get away with wicked? And it never seems that they have to pay for it. Does this ever happen? Did it even happen to other people in the scripture? Say John the Baptist. Did people trouble him and they got their recompense, or the Apostle Paul, or whoever it was? It seems like that this is a thing that has to be specific in some way. Take the context and make it specific. Thank you for that. By the way, I'm working, this is incidental, but I somewhat thought of it. I am working on the book and the materials for our Branson conference. And the prove it is the topic. I'm going to try to prove things. I'm working to prove, in the chapter I'm working on right now, that the Bible does not teach a flat earth. Part of it, the reason I thought of it is because it's this kind of issue that you can take a passage, you can narrow it to the context of what you want it to say, and then you can take that as proof that your concept is right. It's called proof texting. I see it in flat earth all the time, or in cases like this, which always becomes name it and claim it. This is really the same kind of thing. Surprisingly, because most flat earthers are not charismatic, but it's a little bit of a name it and claim it kind of deal. Look, this talks about the foundations of the earth, therefore. Context is king. Context is so important on understanding some of these things. Also, Deb brings up the issue, just in kind of a comment, but I want to bring it up here. The issue of human augmentation. Human augmentation, in the past, I think I called it transhumanism. And it's this idea of, let's say, augmenting the body in one sense or another. Now, we're not talking about vitamin C, that kind of augmentation. We're not talking about eat your fruits and vegetables. You could argue, well, that's human augmentation. Well, that's diet, that's eating, all those kind of good things. We're talking even the, what do they call it? Nanotechnology, where they put things into you, even biosensors, so that they can see, okay, well, Deb's going a little crazy today. Let's up her Prozac, and they can control you from afar. I think we really have to watch out for this kind of stuff. We're the frog in the kettle. It's these things like, most new cars, somebody can tell where you are at all times. And, we like some of the benefits to that, and so we sort of slowly ease into it. So, oh, yeah, this is wonderful. This is just great. If somebody steals my car, I can find it, and I can even put the brakes on that thing. Or, I can start the car ahead of time, have it all warmed up, and some cars, I don't know how well this technology is, but it's been displayed that they certainly have it, that you just call the car to come to you. As a matter of fact, Elon Musk says you can just think about it because of nano biosensors that will send the signal to your car to come pull up to the door and have it at 74 degrees, whatever it is. And some of that seems so cool. Here is a quote that brought it up. Deb gives a quote. "We cannot wait for the ethics." Who is this? Whoever it is, we don't agree with them. "We cannot wait for the ethics of human augmentation to be decided for us. There may be a moral obligation to augment people. The need to use human augmentation may be dictated by national interest." Did you catch that? I think this is a European. Sounds like European thinking. But what he says, or she, a moral obligation to augment people. A national interest dictating human augmentation. This is something we've got to be in. I'll go ahead and tell you. When I preached a number of years ago on transhumanism, there were two people in the church that said, we're not coming back. That's way too political. We don't believe it. We're not coming back. It's interesting. The other day, I had someone tell me, they said, yeah, we started coming to your church. They said, the first sermon we heard was transhumanism, and we decided we are going to that church. And they've been here and they're faithful ever since. So, you win some, you lose some. But really, it's offensive to some people. It's out of the realm of thinking to a lot of people, and it is important, let's say, to everyone. Thank you. Let's go to Michael in just a moment, but I tell you what, first of all, just a supplementary question from Lisa. I was thinking about you too yesterday. Will the Branson Conference be broadcast live and written materials available for purchase ahead of time? Thanks, and sorry if you've already answered these inquiries. We will broadcast it live. I always give a little disclaimer on Branson because it's not our internet, and so we're sort of trusting that the internet's good and all that kind of stuff. We've souped up ours here and try to get it, where it broadcasts live well. Even then, every now and then there's a problem, but we will broadcast it live. I do plan on having it where you can get the resources ahead of time. I'll just make it where you will at least get an electronic copy. We'll put the book up for sale on Dispensational Publishing. Often we get those printed the week of, so it's I can't always get it to you on a timely basis, but we'll make sure it's electronic there and can get it to you. The Cucamonga question is next up for today. Michael in Rancho Cucamonga, please give a good reason for a right divider to study the Old Testament apart from historical reasons. Okay, yeah, excellent. First of all, let's say that, let's admit that the vast majority of our foundational theology comes from the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures. That is what we know about creation. We could pick up just a little bit from say Romans chapter 1 and a little bit in Colossians, but we really wouldn't have much of a creation focus or a creation understanding at all were it not for the Old Testament. Now, you say, okay, so you don't know about creation. But the problem with that is that things like creationism are foundational elements to our worldview. And to understand right division, you've got to get the worldview right. So you can't get the worldview right without the Hebrew Scriptures. So we've got to know, really, I would say what's often called theology proper in scholarly circles. Theology proper. Who is God? What's the revelation of God? That by the time you get to the New Testament, it's assumed. There's really a lot more revelation about the person identity of God, if you will. In the Old Testament, obviously you get Christology mostly from the New Testament, but even there, not completely. The scheme of history, by that I mean God promising, well, let me back up. The whole fall of man, the need for salvation. We know the means of salvation, but we don't know why without the Old Testament. So the need for salvation, the separation from God, the promise that God gives of a coming deliverer, Messiah, Redeemer, the method in which he planned to bring that out, the identity, let's say the identifying marks of that. For example, the coming book, Shadows of the Coming King, that we have done on a series as well, that really, 90%, maybe more, of how to even recognize that Jesus is the Messiah comes from the Old Testament. So, our schematic of world history, which for a right divider, you've got to know this is an insertion into this schematic. If all you know is the insertion, you'll get a lot of your theology wrong. Really, I would even say our eschatology far more comes from the Old Testament. You go to a prophecy conference, whether they get it right or wrong, most of the prophecy is going to come from the pages of the Old Testament, and there's going to be some confirmation in the New Testament. There's going to be a few things in the New Testament that are a little bit of an addition there, or elaboration more so in the book of Revelation. You get the rapture, which is sort of the eschatology for the body of Christ, but not for the rest. So again, that's the beginning and the end, the bookends of our worldview. So really, we've got to have it. Now, is there some history, history lessons? Yeah, there are. Our series on David, which we're in, the 36th or 37th sermon on that, there's a lot of history there. More so, I would say, even than doctrine. There's some typology that we can get out of it, but it's mostly the history of God's dealings, and to know that is a blessing and a benefit, but honestly, I would say that's not one of the things you would have to know to get your doctrine of right division right. So yeah, history, a lot of it. But again, even with that, there's so many in the New Testament or even in the Pauline epistles, there's so many references to the Old Testament. I think you would be somewhat lost without it. So maybe I would put it this way. I don't know if this is the best way to put it, but let's try it. Maybe I would say, what in the world, what good purpose does mathematics proper, the four functions of math, and the study of numbers, the number line, rational numbers, irrational numbers, all that, what good purpose does that have if you want to do algebra? Well, I think it may be too obvious, and maybe that's not the best illustration, but algebra can't be done without knowing an integer, a real number. What do you do with fractions and all this kind of all the underlying, just basic rudimentary things. So we get so many of those basic rudimentary things from the pages of the Old Testament. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. And Rancho Cucamonga. Anonymous question for our next question of the day. Did God show mercy to Adam by killing an animal? Here we are talking Genesis 3. And I don't know. Let's start, say, verse 13. The Lord God said to the woman, "What have you done?" The Lord said to the serpent, and there's the curse and the promise, the original promise of a Messiah. And then you've got the curses that come in, thorns and thistles, sweat of the brow. And the separation that comes out, he drove. Well, I thought it was in 3. Did I skip it? Where is the passage here about God made skin? It must be earlier. Verse 7. The eyes of both of them were opened. They knew that they were naked. They sewed fig leaves. No death of an animal there. And then they come, I heard that voice in the garden. I was afraid. Who told you that they were naked? I commanded that thou shalt not eat. The woman thou gavest. Okay, somewhere I missed it. You all know the passage I'm talking about. That God gave them skins. Presumably, though the passage doesn't explicitly say so, but your options are limited. Presumably, God killed the animal and gave him that covering. I think there's a lot here that we probably do not understand. What's the issue? Why, when they ate the fruit, was nakedness an issue for them? It wasn't at the end of chapter 2. Now all of a sudden it is. The covering, what's the connection there? We end up having to say, well, my philosophy is. Often we get the concept that the issue is God making a sacrifice and in mercy killing that animal. Somebody find that passage for me. It just ought to be right there. I think I'm looking over it. The way I was taught it, here's the first sacrifice. God sacrificed this animal for a covering. and it gave some type or foreshadowing of the eventual issues that would come. Are we reading too much into that? Maybe so. Did God show mercy to Adam by killing an animal? I don't think it was a substitutionary kind of thing. Adam was embarrassed. He helped him not to be embarrassed. That's kind of merciful. Would I want to build a lot of doctrine off of that? Probably not. Genesis 3:21. I must have just read over it. I knew it was there. Unto Adam also and his wife did the Lord God make coats of skins and clothe them. Again, it implies the death of an animal? I don't think, other than a snake, I don't think there's an animal that sheds its skin and lives. And I doubt they were snake skin. Even shed snake skin, I don't think you can make clothes out of. I think I probably would say be real careful building much of a doctrine out of that. Yeah, Perplexity here has got, this act is often seen as the first instance of animal sacrifice symbolizing atonement for sin, implying the first death, and goes into, an evangelical can make a lot of sermon out of that. Maybe we should just go matter of fact. It looks like there was a death. Did God kill it? I think that's when death entered in the world. Did this thing get hit by a falling rock? Who knows? Thank you. A related question from yesterday. We had the question about the serpent and the talking animals. Here's an anonymous question. If not a snake, why did God say, upon thy belly shalt thou go? I think I would just say that might be a condemnation for, let's go ahead and call him Lucifer. For Lucifer, for this shining one. It may be that Lucifer is the one that's crawling about on his belly. And that may be a better view of Satan than the figure of beauty that we often picture him as, or definitely better than the, red-suited, cartoonish kind of devil. Could it be that the devil, maybe snakes always crawled around on their belly from the beginning of creation, but Lucifer now has to crawl around on his belly? I don't think that's outside of the question. Thanks for that. Jim, good to see you, our missionary friend, now in the United States, formerly in China. Glad you're home and doing well. Good morning, Brother White. And yes, it's me again. I'm glad you're here. Have one more question, at least for now anyway. Well, but we don't charge extra. So, oh, Jim, you know what? I didn't finish your question yesterday, did I? I forgot about that. But I'm going to go ahead with this one. Sorry about that. I forgot I had part 2 of the question yesterday and we ran out of time. Okay, so, but anyway, Jim's question today is related to 2 Corinthians 4:18. Hey, Jim, while I'm looking that up, where are you living today? I know that you've come home from China, and glad that has gone well. But I probably know, because I think I have your newsletter, but I've been behind on emails. But would love to know where you are. So I can say like, Jim in Kalamazoo. Okay. So 2 Corinthians 4:18. Let's read it here first. While we look not at things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen, for the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. There's the verse. In this particular verse, 2 Corinthians 4:18, while, Jim is given a little Greek, while we look, skopeo, not at things which are seen. Part 1 of the question. Can you help me understand the Greek usage of skopeo? Probably. The simplest basic, this is not always right, but the simplest basic view is like we would say scope, telescope, microscope. Is it in your scope? Narrowing our vision to say, here is what we're looking at. Periscope moves the scope all around. So it is a sight word, but is it a sight word that demands vision? Because again, Paul's talking about scoping out things that are not seen. So let's check that particular word. Obviously, it's a verb. I'm gonna bring up Strong's Enhanced Lexicon here. Only 6 times is it used. Translates as mark, take heed, look on, look at, consider. Now, here's what I was hoping they had, and they did. For synonymous entries, see 991. I don't know if the regular Strong's has this or if only Enhanced Strong's has this. But here's the point. Whenever you see that, you know that there is the possibility that you can, that Paul in this case could have used a different word, but he chose this word. So I always want to stop and say, okay, why did he use this particular word for looking at, for vision? What's going on here? And so I'm going to go ahead and click to 990. No. Actually, it should be 5822. Synonyms for these 3 words: blepo, horao, skopeo. These are 3 sight words that are synonyms, but we all know that synonyms are not synonymous. That is to say, I'll borrow from Mark Twain, the difference between the right word and the almost right word is like the difference between the lightning and the lightning bug. So you got to be real careful with synonyms. Sometimes they can just be substituted, but they usually have a little bit of, let's say, nuance to them that we have to look at. So as we look at this, Strong's says, horao gives prominence to the discerning mind. So he could have said that. Hey, look at something with me. I want you to look at something with me. And then you start this mental exercise. That would be the horao word. Or there is the blepo word, 991, to a particular mood or point. probably we would say, like, well, how do you see this? I want you to look at something with me. How do you see this? That can be mental. That is, you know, your mood, your point of view, those two different words. When the physical side recedes, 3708 denotes perception in general as resulting principally from vision. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I think it means did you see that? What did you see? Seeing it perhaps in your mind's eye. The prominence being in the mental element, yeah. 991, on the other hand, when the physical side recedes, gets a purely outward sense. Okay, now, okay, that's comparing those two. Now let's compare to 4648 as our word scapeo. 4648 scapeo is more pointed than 991, which is the mood. Often meaning to scrutinize, to observe. When the physical sense recedes, and it has in 2 Corinthians 4:18, we're seeing things not seen. So when the physical sense recedes, to fix one's mind's eye, direct one's attention to a thing in order to get it, or owning to interest in it, or a duty towards it. Hence, often the same as to aim at, to care for. Now let's go back to scapeo, to mark it, to take heed, to look at it, to consider. Now, with that, let's jump back to the verse. While we consider not the things which are seen, but the things which are not seen. The things which are seen are temporal. The things not seen are eternal. I think what he's encouraging here, we would want to take the broader context, but I think in the Greek what he's encouraging in the Greek word scapeo is, hey, wait a minute. Easy to talk about what you see. I want us to consider, to talk about, to mark, to highlight the things that we cannot see. In other words, let's look at the spiritual side of this. Take a moment to look at the spiritual side of this. Let me give a little example from, say, doctrine. There are textual doctrines that are just right there in black and white. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. All things were created by him. Nothing was created by him that is created. It's all through his hand. Paraphrase there. That's textual. It's in the black and white. Now, let's move on to the things that aren't in the black and white in theology. Doctrines of creation that go beyond, yeah, well, it just says this right here. What are the hidden elements of that we can draw from it, which is where most doctrine comes from. So moving on to the spiritual. Okay, that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question, how would you define the word while? This helps us to translate the word. Begins with while. While we look not at these things. Let's go ahead and pull up Strong's on this. Let's see. Okay, I've got a bit of a problem there, so I'm going to go back over here. Let me get all this. Get Strong's to the right. Okay. I'm going to open the Greek. The word while is actually not there in the Greek. We would not put this in that order in English, so we have to, that's what this 1, 2, 3, 4. We, not considering the things seen, but. While is really just helping us in English, we could start the sentence just like that. Not considering the things seen, but the things not seen. It's an okay English sentence. You can do it. But it helps to, especially sometimes when you have the word but, the contrasting word but, which is there, but the things not seen. It helps in English to lay the groundwork for that. So, while we're doing this, let's not forget that on the other hand, we could do this. I am sure you speaking some sort of Chinese, I'm not sure if it's Mandarin or which one it is, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that you have to say, okay, Chinese grammar, getting it into English grammar. We have all seen the evidence that Chinese to English by a non-English speaker can be quite humorous. So the while there is really just a way to make the sentence flow better grammatically. There's no underlying Greek word to it. It just helps us to know there's a but out there. It's almost a little flag. And so I think that's the meaning of the word while there, or that's the reason. Almost a more natural way to put it in English, and let's compare some translations here for a moment, see if any of them have done this. A more natural way in English is to say, maybe it's not. I was going to switch that. Let's focus on the things not seen rather than the things seen. Kind of swaps that order. But King James is pretty persnickety about keeping the order, just so we, the English reader, can know it. So let's go ahead and look at some other translations of 2 Corinthians 4:18. See if any have done this. They may not have. We'll find out. So we've got the King James right over here. While. NASB, while we look not. The only difference NASB made was that they did not start a sentence. ESV took while and put as we look to the things that are seen. While and as, I think we could say that's the same. NIV, so we fix our eyes not at what is seen. See, they've changed it quite a bit, but they're still using that sort of bridge word to help us out. The Net Bible, because. I almost think that because is too strong to put in there. This is more of a incidental, this is happening. Not because gives the idea of here's the foundational reason, where this is more just a statement of fact. Here's what's going on. So because we're not looking at the things which can be seen. See, there they even changed looking to they changed the tense of the verb. If I was Dallas Theological Seminary and some of their guys did the Net Bible, I would get rid of the guys that are still at Dallas Theological Seminary teaching. I would say that's embarrassing, guys. No, we can't. You changed way too much. It's way too sloppy. The CSB, which is none of the above, puts in so. We do not focus on what is seen. Focus, they're babysitting for us there. and trying to bring that idea of scopeo out a little bit. I don't really like babysitting, but if you need a nanny Bible, you'd want to go with Focus. So basically, X out net, it's not any good. As, while. You just got to have that bridge word for English for it to be good in formal writing. We could do it in conversational writing even, or conversational discussion, but not so much there. Oh, how nice. My wife Katie received the book she ordered from you. Well, I am glad. Thank you. Pastor Ron in Chugwater, Wyoming. I am starting a midweek youth program. Good for you. We will study what the Bible is and how to use it. Good for you. What a great place to start. Any thoughts from your experience on other study ideas? I have several, but I would like your input. Let's see. I first of all would say that it is helpful on studying what the Bible is and how to use it. Bridge onto that a basic organizational structure of the Bible. I have got one in The Bible Graphically Presented. There's a series on it online. I've got the book. And for Ron, maybe I'll help you out. Send me an email. But help the students understand the flow of the Bible. My guess in Chugwater, Wyoming, they probably know here is the Bible. It has an Old Testament and a New Testament. Beyond that, they might not know much. You and I probably, Ron, when we were young, we went to, Vacation Bible School or something like that, and they gave us this little bookmark that had all the books of the Bible on a bookshelf, and they separated them out. These are books of history, these are books of prophecy, these are books of poetry, these are gospels, these are epistles, things like that. My guess is that the average teenager today across America doesn't even know that. So, go back to the 70s and order some of those bookmarks and get those. They're generally helpful. They kind of miss the whole right division and Pauline stuff, but it's a start. But what I would help them to understand, and this is especially true even in the Old Testament, that you can take the whole and you can begin to divide it. You don't even have to use the words right division or anything. Just take the whole and begin to divide it. Though it's not my favorite, I would say, something like, okay, this is a Bible. Look, we can divide it between New Testament and Old Testament. Now we take this and can we divide the Old Testament? I would say, yeah, look, we can divide this between Israel and not Israel. And I would start somewhere around, Genesis 1 through 11, separated from Genesis 12 through the end of Malachi. So we're pretending like this is it. There's Israel, there is not Israel, here's Israel. Now, of this Israel portion, we can divide it. We can divide it between there is no nation, Genesis 12 through Exodus 20. So pre-national Israel to national Israel, beginning in Exodus chapter 20. They're a nation now. They got their constitution. They're out there on their own, soon to have some land. We could take national Israel and we could divide it. There's a number of different ways you could go here. You could say pre-conquest, conquest. That may be too thin of a division there. You get the rest of the book of, the rest of the Torah, and then you end up with Joshua onward, after the conquest. Then you could say we can do pre-monarchy and monarchy. And then, and tell them, hey, the pre-monarchy, that's the book of Joshua and the book of Judges and the book of Ruth, first parts of the book of First Samuel. In the monarchy, we could say united monarchy, divided monarchy. Separate that out. And again, you'd want to show them where this was in the scripture. So now we've got the divided monarchy. Honestly here, I would circle around that a few times. Maybe even get to where a student could do just what I am. I mean, you're a school teacher, you know the blessings of repetition. Make a game out of it. I remember with our young men's Bible study in Katy, Texas, I did some of this. These were adult professional men. And I put those things on business cards, not business cards, index cards. And I just wrote, monarchy. Divided monarchy. I mixed them up, threw them out on the table, so you guys put those in order. If grown men in their 20s and 30s with advanced degrees in engineering can do that, so can the teenagers. That helps them then when the preacher says, hey, turn to 2 Samuel chapter 17, they know, oh, this is in the period of the monarchy. They'll be far advanced from the rest of the adults in your church if they can get that much. So, plus, subtly, they have learned to divide. Then you could take those little portions and you could say, okay, what are the main characteristics of this period of the monarchy? Let's go, say the united monarchy that we've got over here. You can keep dividing, keep dividing, keep dividing. So get this level, then this level, then this level. They begin to know their Bible without, they get to know it from the 30,000 foot level, and then they keep on drilling down. So when they get to an actual verse, they're kind of aware what's going on. So again, you take the monarchy and, okay, here's Saul, here's David, here's Solomon. We divided it 3 times. I don't know that you want to go this far necessarily, but you can keep going from there. Say David, okay, here's his pre-king time, here's his kingdom time in Hebron, here's his kingdom time in Jerusalem, over the whole thing, and you begin to get it. In the united monarchy, somewhere you're going to want to have the fall of the monarchy and have the period of the exile and the return of the exile. All that probably included under divided monarchy. And put that, or the fall of the northern kingdom for that matter, that I didn't include. So start from the top, work down, and make it fun, but make it where, hey, they're getting this. They're understanding how to use their Bible, so that you can eventually say to your youth group, hey, we're studying the book of Habakkuk. What period of time was that for the nation? Well, that was the period of the divided monarchy. Okay, got it. Was it before or after the fall of Israel? You can just keep going in and drilling down, getting off. Now, obviously, you can do those then in the New Testament too. You've got Gospels, you've got history, you've got Pauline epistles, you've got general epistles, you've got the Apocalypse, the book of Revelation, and begin sorting those out. That will be such a help to, because then the Bible begins to be some book that I can grasp, and I can get a plot, and I can put it, and I can see how one leads to another, and this is a story that all comes together, and it becomes not so overwhelming that way. So there it is. We think alike, brother. I think we do. Now that's going to take a while. And with teenagers, my philosophy anyway, and you've worked with teenagers a lot more than I have as a high school teacher, but with teenagers at church anyway, I think you go in drips, put a small issue out there, and let them get that well. Sometimes they devour it and they want a bucket load. When they do, give it to them. But on those Wednesday nights, when honestly, you can't get much out, Can you get a drop? Be satisfied with it. Because, and this is our philosophy in John Nelson Darby Academy also, that if we have a dripping faucet all year long, we will end up with a lot of water. And what doesn't appear to be too much today, drip, 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 it adds up. It will sustain. So go with that so that you don't, especially in starting a youth program, people of every background, let them have a little fun, let them enjoy being around church people, let them be a little rambunctious. If you can do some music, kids like music, but they don't like our old fogey music, so you got to be kind of careful there. Try to make it fun, entertaining for them. They've been in school all day, or out on the ranch or whatever it is. So don't think you have to do it all in one day. Now, if you're like Jennifer and you're doing homeschooling, well, that's a little different story. Sit down and get your work done. But a midweek Bible program at church is not quite like that. Thanks, Ron, for the good work in Chugwater, Wyoming. I think I got time for Manny's question. Manny in San Antone for the last question of the day. Another comparison question. Manny always wins the award for comparison questions. We got 3 scriptures. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 38. I'm going to get them all up here. Romans chapter 1, verse 17. And Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. They all say, the just shall live by his faith. Let's just check that out first. Hebrews 10:38, now the just shall live by faith. Romans 1:17, for therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. Habakkuk, where it is written, but his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. But is a comparison there. His soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. Okay, with these 3 passages of Scripture, Manny says, they all say the just shall live by his faith. Was this to those who were under the law? Sounds like they needed to stay faithful. I think so. The easy ones there are Hebrews and Habakkuk. The easiest is obviously Habakkuk. That, yeah, the just, this comparison of the one whose soul is lifted up is not upright. He should be like the just. They live by faith. Hebrews, of course, is, if you're not an evangelical, it's decently easy to recognize that this is to the Hebrews. And Hebrews were under the law. And he's trying to explain what's about to happen. Now the just shall live by faith. It's quoting Habakkuk. It is my principle that whatever the context is in the original has to be carried over to the quote. You can't change the context. You can't use it out of context. So the context is the same here. The just shall live by faith. If any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. Those two sound awful lot alike. This Romans one is the one that confuses us a little bit, because we take Romans and say, well, this is our stuff. Therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. And we change this to inadvertently read, the just shall live by faith alone. This sounds like works in Habakkuk, This sounds like works in Hebrew. This we make to be grace. And that is schizophrenic. Does not work. I happen to think Romans 1, let's go to the very well-known verse. Right before verse 17 is verse 16. I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. It is the power of God unto salvation to everyone who believeth, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. I am one that does not use this in the plan of salvation. I used to use it as the gospel of Christ being the gospel of Paul, but I don't anymore. I think Paul is introducing himself to Roman Jews saying, I'm not ashamed of the kingdom gospel, the messianic gospel. By the way, I'm going to switch over here to the Habakkuk passage and go to Romans chapter 1. Is it verse 7? No, maybe I need to go Romans chapter 1, verse 1. Okay, here he says, separated unto the gospel of God. And the gospel of God promised afore. I think this gospel of God and gospel of Christ are the same, and they're not the Pauline gospel. I'm actually going to have a chapter on this at our Branson conference. So here, let's call this the gospel of the kingdom, both of these. The gospel of the kingdom is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. I don't think this fits Pauline, in which there is no Jew and there is no Greek. For therein, in the kingdom gospel, is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. If you take Romans 1, 16 and 17, in the context of the kingdom gospel, then it fits exactly like Habakkuk and Hebrews, and it works. If not, you've got to ignore the context of Habakkuk in order for Paul to quote it in the context of the Pauline gospel in Romans. And I don't think even Paul can ignore the context, say, I like the way he said that, I just don't mean the same thing. I think you've got to separate that out in a very different way. So, yeah, I agree with you, Manny. I think these are comparable. I think that it does sound like those under the law, and I think it sounds like they needed to stay faithful, endure to the end, live by faith. That's what they got to do. Thanks, Manny in San Antonio. I appreciate that. I got some of Gerard's comments, and I got Jim from Alabama. And tomorrow I'm going to start with your Ephesians question that I didn't get to yesterday because of time and I forgot it was up there. And so tomorrow we start with Jim in Alabama and the Ephesians questions. Thank you very much, Jim and Katie in Alabama. Appreciate that. We got, let's see, Felicia's in Alabama, and let's see, Brian in Rocket City, and, well, Myra, she's from Alabama. She doesn't live there, but anyway. First thing tomorrow, Jim from Alabama's up in Ephesians. Thanks for being here with us. Got lots of good books coming up. You be watching. I will begin to put them on dispensational publishing for shipment after the conference, in case you want to load your cart up. But I would say, load your cart and leave it there. Don't pay yet. Because if you just buy one of these and then you say, oh, I want those two, if you go ahead and pay, it's going to make you pay shipping. But if you get over $35, it's free shipping. So, you know, you might want to, you might inadvertently just get Romans 1 and you say, I want volume 2 also. And I could have got free shipping. So, go for it. Thank you very much. The conference at Branson will be live streamed. Back up a little bit, Jennifer. You're late, Jennifer. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate the good work. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow for Ask the Theologian, as well as our Mark Bible study on a full week of broadcasting here. God bless you. We'll see you soon. RandyWhiteMinistries.org/Branson. We'll see you soon.